Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you're dialing in from. Delighted to see you again for our 26th episode of Lead Strong. I am, as always, joined by my wonderful co-host, Stephanie Hopper. Hi, Steph. And we have two fantastic guests with us today, Amrit and Tanya, who will introduce themselves shortly. So my name is Celine Floyd. I'm one of the co-directors of Catfinity's talent practice. Catfinity is a strengths-based organisation and development. We have offices in the UK, Ireland, Australia and America. And we support organisations from apprentice level all the way up to board C-suite level with the talent acquisition and talent management of their people. And as I said, I co-direct the talent practice, which is all around supporting organisations with their incumbent talent, getting people in the right place at the right time and playing to their strengths. We've got a corker of an episode for you today. So Steph, hello, would like to introduce yourself and what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Celine. So I'm Steph Hopper. I'm the other director of the talent practice with a specialist interest in development. And we've got two fantastic guests with us again today. And I guess the topic today is all around strengths-based leadership, which is fantastic, and I think really plays well to their areas of interest. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and also just tell us a bit about why they're passionate about about leadership. So let me come to Amrit first of all. So Amrit, perhaps you could just tell us a bit about yourself and why you're passionate about leadership.
Sure, thank you. So my name's Amrit. I started my life off as a pharmacist, actually, so very different field that I'm in now, but healthcare, and very quickly went into operations, leading teams, managing teams, figuring out how to do that the hard way, I guess, sort of the scars in life that make you who you are, and went on to lead teams across the UK. And not quite understanding why things were working, why things didn't work, what was going on there. Ended up heading up employee engagement for Asda, working with Walmart on some global stuff, and then went on to work for the Sunday Times Best Companies to Work For. And it's throughout that journey, actually, I realized some of my own strengths and passions. And so I'm the CEO and founder now of the Engagement Coach, which is what I went to then create. And our whole focus is, imagine if people brought the passion we have outside of work to work. Imagine what what we could create from our workplaces. And that's what we do. We help organizations help improve their whole culture, their leadership, their engagement. But I guess I bring my own personal story and all of that to that work that we do. So there you go.
Brilliant, fantastic. And Amrit, why would you say that you're particularly passionate about leadership?
I think so I'm going to just very briefly touch upon as a pharmacist. So when you're going through pharmacy or studying to be a pharmacist, so on a Friday, you are a pre-registration student. On the Monday, you are now in charge of a team. Between Friday and Monday, nothing changes. But suddenly, I am now responsible for a team of people. I'm responsible for patients, their lives, their livelihood, the people around me. And somehow I'm meant to have changed overnight to lead a team. And I started to explore this whole focus of leadership. Who am I trying to lead? I was having trouble trying to lead myself. I grew up as a very shy child, not quite comfortable in my own skin, and having no clue what I want to do in the world. Pharmacy was something I was told to be by my parents. So as a nice compliant son, I became a pharmacist. But I realized that actually there was the deep-rooted passion about helping people in that. And so when I started to see leadership, examples of leadership around me, I saw some awful ones. But I could take a step back and see the impact they were having on people around them, and wondering how could they be so oblivious to what they're doing to people around them. And I saw some amazing examples, thinking, how did they do that? What is it? How are they born with that? What is that? And that's when I started to explore this whole thing about leadership. When I was an area manager, I had a fantastic team around me, went on to be brilliant, and I needed to understand why it had gone so well. So I then went off and started doing some navel gazing, and went on to do some various programs in coaching, executive coaching and NLP and various other things, to understand what had gone on there. Because if I could understand it, I could replicate it. And I realized how important leadership is. And the work we do now with CEOs, boardrooms are up and down the country. It's critical. Leaders are critical to the organization, but they're critical to the vision, the strategy, all the stuff we know. But it's what it looks like on a Sunday night when somebody sat in their hands, with their head in their hands on a Sunday night thinking, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. That's where it really makes a difference. And I think that's where it speaks to me. So
brilliant. Thank you, Amrit. That's lovely to hear a bit of your backstory and the reason that you are passionate as you are about leadership and the role that leaders play. Tanya, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about your career and why you're passionate about the subject of leadership.
So hello everyone, my name is Tanya. So my career, I was just thinking as Amrit was talking, spans back to around about 25 years, which makes me feel very, very old. And I started off, I think my first ever job was like a recruitment assistant role. And it just went on from there. I just really loved it. I had a passion for HR. It seemed to suit me. Probably played to my strengths. At the time, I probably didn't know what my strengths were. I'd never heard of it back then. And I progressed my career actually through pharmaceutical industry, largely most of it in HR roles and OD roles. And everything that Amrit was saying just reminded me actually why I'm probably quite passionate about leadership is working within the pharmaceutical industry, working with people with really high educated people from medical backgrounds. And we would reward them suddenly by promoting them into really large roles with big leadership responsibility, and they had to motivate and lead these big teams of people. And I used to be like astounded by how they suddenly couldn't do it very well. And you look back now and it's obvious because we never gave them the support or the training to be a true leader. But at that time, it was let's reward this person because they've done really well at this, this, and this, and let's make them leader because that's naturally the next step up for them. And then you would see their energy drop, and you'd see some of them start to fail because they could not fathom where to start with the whole leadership piece. And it's when I worked for a particular pharmaceutical company called Boeing, and that's where I really started to have a passion for OD. So I moved from sort of HR specialising into OD, and we did some great work there around strengths, and that's probably where my advocacy for strengths has really started and grown from there. And then I find myself at British Airways today, focusing on people strategy, OD, and talent. And yeah, I've been there for around about, I think I'm coming up to my 7th year. So, and we're doing some fantastic stuff on leadership at the moment and really tapping into leadership strengths and helping to identify how people can align their strengths to leadership behaviours. So yeah, that's where I am today.
Can I just interject? Sorry, Tanya, you just said 7. Today's our 7th birthday as a company.
Hey.
Coach.
This is weird. Amrit and I have so much in common.
I know, see? Making connections.
Congratulations, Amrit.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Amrit. Lovely. Well, thank you both so much. And as you say, really interesting as always to see the synergy there in kind of careers and how you kind of developed the views that you've got. And of course, strengths has been mentioned a few times in the time that we've had so far. And Capfinity organisationally has been built upon and grown on the basis of our belief in strengths and the power of strengths, which we define as being those things that people are not only good at but also enjoy. So it's really important, we believe, to look at what motivates someone, what gives them joy, what they're passionate about, because as we know, all the research shows that if someone is in a role that plays to their strengths and they're able to use their strengths, everything is better. Their performance is higher, their well-being is higher, absenteeism is lower. And what's been really interesting for us to see in the research and also in the research that we've been doing ourselves, I'd say over the last kind of predominantly 6 to 7 years, is to see the impact of taking a strengths-based approach from a leadership perspective and with the leadership population. And some of the really fascinating research around if a leader is playing to their strengths, the exponential impact on their followers as well. And so that's really the basis, I think, for this conversation, is looking at what it means for leaders to take that strengths-based approach. And perhaps to start the conversation, I'd love to get your views on what is, I guess, quite a fundamental question, which is why you think it's important that leaders understand what gives them energy or what they're passionate about. You know, for you, why is that important for leaders to have? I'll come back to Tanya in the first instance. Tanya, why do you think that's so important?
For me, it just always comes back to energy. So for me, a leader, they have to produce a vision, or a team produces a vision. They have to get people around that vision, galvanize a team around visions and strategy and plans. And when businesses go through this 4 or 5 year cycle, and it changes every 4 or 5 years, and we have this new vision, and it's really hard for people to probably get their heads around what that could look like, because you're not there yet. You've got some time to travel before you're going to realize your vision. And the big part for me of being a leader is being really energized to behind that, what that is, whatever that may be. And then how do you emanate that energy to get your team to galvanize around what sometimes is only like pieces of word on a paper, and they don't actually know what that could look like yet, and it's all quite new to them, and they need to get their head around it. So I think it is, for me, definitely the energy, especially given what we've been through over the last couple of years. When I look at a leader now, what I like to see in a leader is energy and passion, because I think we spend too much time trying to fix things, and we have particularly done that over the last couple of years, trying to fix things drains you of energy. I think it's probably in our human nature to fix things, fill gaps, make things right again. And I just feel that if you have energy as a leader, that's a really good sign of what your team are like. So I think a team with high levels of energy is healthy. I think an organization with high levels of energy is healthy. And that in turn has massive payoffs for organizations and teams, in terms of how engaged they are and how productive they are. So for me, it's all about the energy that you can get from a leader focusing on what their strengths are.
Yeah, I love that. And I love this sense of energy being a real powerful vehicle for getting other people on board. And that theme of a leader is often the first to arrive at the future state, and everyone else is following, has come up a few times in these conversations. So thank you, Tanya. That's really really interesting. Amrit, does that echo your own kind of views on the topic around why it's important for leaders to know their strengths and what they're passionate about?
It does. I think the energy is almost the output. I think there's something about congruence. And when you come across people who are cognizant of their strengths and they're utilizing them on a daily basis, it sort of seeps out through every pore in their body. When you're interacting with them, the level of confidence you have in them, their ability to articulate, to get things across. There's something about that congruence, this authenticity. I think that's what then leads to the energy. Certainly I've seen it with even my own example of when I was growing up, I didn't know what my strengths were. Suddenly when I came across them, the Tanya spoke about energy, I just suddenly became on fire. It was just amazing that I had this passion and love for something. I happened to be good at it because I had a passion for it and I had a focus on it. But I finally felt like I discovered myself again. It was this congruence inside me that I could articulate, interact with people. And it's funny, when you look back on your life, it's almost like your personal values. When you look back and you join the dots, it was always there, sort of trying to jump up and shout out saying, I'm here, I'm here. But when you identify it, there's that congruence that allows you to feel really comfortable in your own skin. You're not trying to compete. You're not trying to be something else. You're actually really happy and comfortable with where you are and who you are, because you know your strengths, but also then allows you to bring in people who are far better at things that you aren't, or that isn't your passion. I'm a firm believer everything can be learned. As human beings, we can learn anything. There's just some things I just don't want to learn, but other people will want to learn. That's their passion. Happy days, because that's what makes a great team. And I think that's what, as a leader, being aware of what your strengths are, being aware, when you're overplaying them, when you're underplaying them, but also then the areas that you think, I'm just not passionate about those things. And when I first set the company up as a CEO, I did everything. Didn't mean I was good at it. And now I've got a fantastic team who can do that. So I completely agree with Tanya here. Energy absolutely. But it's the underlying congruence, and I think the impact that then has on an organization, both on psychological safety, in terms of engagement, we just create an atmosphere and an environment and culture where people feel at ease. And I think that's the difference it can really have.
Yeah.
Interesting you brought up authenticity, Amrit, because Stephen James in the comments has said it drives the authenticity of the leader. Amrit, you got there before me.
Yeah, and that's, you know, it's a word that really, you know, in the concept that does come up, as I say, time and time again. And I'm interested in one of the things that we've seen as a trend over the last few years is seeing that we've kind of been picking apart and kind of breaking down this myth that leaders need to do everything. You alluded to it there, and actually taking a strengths-based approach and doing what you're good at and what you know gives you joy is a bit of a luxury for a leader, because they're in this senior position, often they're paid a lot of money, they're well rewarded, and our view is actually, you know, leaders deserve to play to their strengths as much as everyone else. And have you seen that be a something that you've had to demyth within the work that you do? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have, and I think the whole focus on I think the challenge with as leaders is we're always trying to put everybody, whether it's my team or whether it's the organization, we're always focusing on trying to put them first, and almost often at our own expense. But you know, the whole concept of emotional contagion, we know what it's like when you come across a leader who's stressed out, who's up against it, who isn't loving work. No matter whatever words I use to say we should, you know, fly the corporate flag and we should all get behind this. Again, you can tell with human beings, we're built to read into people and to read body language and everything else. And it's different when you come across somebody who really is playing to their strengths. And I think that's where you create that culture, that environment where it's okay. Yeah, and we're almost giving permission in leaders, as well as clarity, vision, and strategy. We're almost role modeling the way we want the culture to be. And so when I'm at ease, when I'm playing to my strengths, I'm encouraging others to do the same. And I think certainly the organizations we've worked with some amazing CEOs who, you know, gone are the old days when it used to be, you know, just do what I say and comply. And I think this is the beauty of where we're at. Certainly across the UK, you know, we've got CEOs, boardrooms full of passionate people who genuinely want to make a difference. And they're starting with themselves first to say, why can't I play to my strength?
Yeah.
And then how can I help my team step up to compensate for where I don't have to do everything? And I don't know whether, I think Tanya you might mention it, but you know, the 2 years that we've had that's allowed us to reflect on life. I sense that there's this certainly a reinforcement to say, actually, I want to go back to playing my strengths. Why should I put myself second? So, yeah.
Very true. And it's interesting what you said, actually, Amrit, because there's that research by Goffey and Jones on authentic leadership around be yourself. Like, to be an effective leader, you need to be yourself, but with skill. So it's not enough, is it, just to, you know, be yourself. It's got to be thoughtful in how we do it. And I guess you also touched on the culture that a strengths-based, you know, organization might, you know, have. And I guess that's something that I'm interested to explore now. So how leaders can create a more sort of positive strengths-based culture within their organization. And Tanya, I believe you are an expert in this. So
No pressure.
no pressure, but let's hear from you, love.
Well, I think Amrit did hit the nail on the head a bit when he was talking about, for me, the word I was thinking was humility. I mean, how often do very senior CEOs or very senior leadership groups get to spend time to focus on them and who they are and what their strengths and weaknesses are? And I think what I've been working on recently has really helped leaders within where I work to really understand that they are human, then they're not superhuman, and they do have weaknesses, but they also have strengths. And I think when you come out of what we have over the last 2 years, what I've been focusing on is coming out in a level playing field almost, and we're in this together, and we're going to get through this together. And I think this level playing field is around, just saying that I might be a senior leader, but I am not superhuman, and I do have my weaknesses, as do you. So let's focus on that. Let's focus on what my strength is and your strength, and how do we compensate and build diverse teams moving forward around what our priorities are to ensure that we can be productive and be energized. Now, you can't use your strengths every day at work. We know that, because that's just not life. But if you can take a different approach to your ways of working, where you can just firstly understand each other's strengths right the way through the organization. And I think starting at the top now is really important, because if you can get a senior leader to become more authentic, and for them to say, oh, guess what? I have a weakness. Then as soon as they say it, then it just trickles through the organization. And that's when people start to, and Amrit said it, you can be yourself. You can bring your true self to the table. Stop pretending to be something or someone that you're not, because you think that's the way you're only going to fit into an organization or a culture. And actually, let's celebrate the diversity of all our capabilities and all our potential, to just unleash productivity. Not just productivity, because it comes back to how productive is an organization, how efficient is it, but is it just enjoyable to work somewhere? Is it fun? And to Amrit's point, I get up in the morning and I enjoy going to work, because I know that I can just be myself and I enjoy what I'm working on. So for me, that's...
Sorry, finish.
Go on. No, go on.
No, I was just going to say, and that really chimes with what Amrit said at the beginning, actually, about finding our passion and purpose, doesn't it? And how important that is. And I guess, Amrit, you probably see that as being fundamentally important as part of a strengths-based culture.
Completely. I fundamentally believe, and we use this strapline all the time, but imagine if people brought their passion to work. Imagine if work was their passion. We talk about employee engagement. Well, we sometimes forget employees join organizations engaged. This engagement is what we do to them. If we could understand their passion, if we could understand what they're looking to achieve and where they work best and facilitate that, imagine what we could do, where people just love coming to work. It's possible. It sounds like utopia, but it's absolutely possible. And there might be days when I don't not enjoy it, but it might not be as enjoyable as another day. That's okay. There's variables that, like Tanya said, it's life. But if we're doing what we love, it just changes the way and we talk about, often customer service. If you think about some of the best service you've had, it was people doing what they loved. Whatever the interaction, it's different, it's deeper, it's more impactful. We create something completely different, and then it resonates with others. So yeah, it's a real passion of mine that you forget. Was it Csikszentmihalyi who talked about the flow? You absorb yourself in flow, and you lose track of time because you're just absorbed in this pleasure of doing amazing work.
Yeah. Well, another thing that just popped into my head is well-being as well. So more so than ever, if we're talking about leadership, so it tends to be maybe on a very senior leader more responsibility that they carry on their shoulders. So if you can ensure that they have the time to really focus on what they are good at, then I think that plays an important part as well.
And it's funny, Tanya, we often find people who have a passion and a strength for areas that we just don't like. And you think, how fantastic is that? We assume everybody's going to like everything, or everybody has a strength in a certain area. It's not like that. Life is so wonderful that we have people who are just amazing in so many different things. And I think that's what allows us to create these amazing workplaces that we are so variable as the human beings that, I think that's what, it's amazing. You find people who are passionate about things. You just, how can you be passionate about that? But we're all different, and it just makes for a wonderful workplace.
There's some lovely comments from our audience today, if you hadn't noticed them. And I'm just going to quickly interject. Mark Edwards is asking Tanya and Amrit what your key strengths are and how you leverage them. We probably haven't got time to go large on those, but maybe you could both share one strength and then maybe how you leverage it every day. Amrit, do you want to start?
Very quickly, I didn't realize how much I love data, data visualization, and this is probably going back to science, but I love storytelling from data. I love the insights you can get, and it's a real passion of mine. I can immediately look at data and tell what's going on in an organization. I never thought that was a strength, but it's just how wonderful is it that where I work now. So that's a real strength, I think. Yeah.
And what about you, Tanya?
One of my unrealized strengths is creativity. So I've always been quite creative outside of work and enjoyed crafty type things and stuff like that, but never really translated it into my work world until I realized that it was one of my unrealized strengths. And then I just happened to be lucky to be working with an organization that let me loose and let me start practicing that strength a bit more.
Brilliant.
Amazing. Yeah, and that's what we often find with strengths. As you said, Tanya, the things that we are doing outside of work, or like you said earlier, Amrit, they're the things that we've been doing since we were really young. They're kind of really quite ingrained in us. So it's lovely when people have those revelation moments of actually, this is it. And the other thing which we often find, which again you spoke to, Amrit, is this sense of our strengths coming so naturally to us that we're almost not noticing, like understanding how other people may struggle with them. Like we see that a lot, people going, well, I don't know why you find that hard. Well, it's because it's a strength for you, but it's not for me. So that's why. Okay. So in summary, it's been a wonderful conversation, and one that I think is very close to Steph and mine's hearts, as you can imagine, working for Catfinity and clearly to you both in your different guises, in your different roles. As we said, Catfinity was founded 17 years ago on this notion of this aspiration of what will the world be like if people were in roles that play to their strengths. And I think what's really struck me from our conversation today is there are two layers to this. We talked a lot around what it feels for the individual as a leader if you're playing to your strengths. We talked about having energy, and you use this language around being on fire, kind of being joyful. Authenticity came through about being very authentic, there being this sense of humility that a leader has, knowing oneself, and then which then enables you to buddy up with other people in the organization, to kind of complement or kind of compensate areas that perhaps aren't a strength for you. So we talked a lot around how it feels for the person, and then of course we talked about what the knock-on effects, the ramifications of that are for followers of leaders, but also just generally culturally within the organization. And we know that when a leader is playing to their strengths, all the positives that they experience around high performance, well-being, lower absenteeism is realised for their followers as well. And you were both, talking about if we can create this sense of people, everyone in an organisation enjoying what they do most days, wouldn't that be wonderful? And Amrit, I love what you said just recently around people join organisations engaged, and disengagement is what we do to them, and strengths being a good kind of lever in to try to break that. So wonderful, lots of great tips in there. To close, I wonder if I can come to each of you very quickly for your final parting pearls of wisdom, and your final reflections on what we have discussed. Tanya, coming to you first, your final thoughts.
So my final thoughts are, shift your focus from trying to manage the deficits and really look at how you unlock your team's potential. So what are their strengths? What are their true capabilities? And really unlock that potential. And honestly, because I guess Amrit and I are naturally, over the years, we've become true advocates of this. But if I speak for Amrit, probably too, that it's because we've seen it, we lived it and breathed it. It really honestly does work. And you will create a great organisation to work in. Shift your focus from deficits and look at people's potential and try and unlock it.
Perfect. Thank you, Tanya. Amrit.
I think life is too short not to live a life full of passion. And there's so much out there. Part of this is going to require, though, there's people out there thinking, well, I don't know what my passion is. We have to put ourselves out there, experiment, try things, And when we break down barriers, we try different things, then we'll know what we like and what we don't like, where our passions are and where they aren't. So if we're sat there in a safe environment and thinking, I don't know what my passions are, it's almost incumbent upon every human being to say, let me go and find out. Let me pick up each stone, turn it over and see what's there. And so that's one thing I would urge people to do, to find their passion. Go out there, experiment, and you'll find things you don't like. But that's good. That's data. It's information, because you'll find something you do and you'll find your passion.
And they might find that they love data like you do, Amrit. Who knows?
There might be more geeks out there.
And finally, Steph.
Yeah, I'd just say, I think really for a leader, it's about noticing when people lean in, because when they lean in, there's probably passion and there's strengths. And, you know, that's useful, whether it's someone in our organisation or someone more senior than us. Like, where are they really engaged? And that can make such a difference, because then we can direct things towards those people that they're going to really get something from. So, yeah, lean in is my final tip.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both so much. And thank you to Steph, and thank you for our audience and all our comments that we've had today, which has been wonderful. We're back again in 2 weeks. Our topic then is going to be the leadership shadow. So another really interesting conversation, I'm sure. But for now, thank you so much. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.